Picture the Pacific coastline of California at night. Waves roll gently against the cliffs. Streetlights glow along winding highways. Millions of people sleep peacefully in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco. But miles beneath their feet, two enormous pieces of earth are slowly grinding against one another, silently, relentlessly. This invisible boundary is called the San Andreas Fault. It stretches nearly 800 miles through California, marking the border between massive Pacific plate and the equally enormous North American plate. And for over a century, scientists have warned about a terrifying possibility: a massive earthquake, a rupture so powerful it could reshape the landscape of California. The event they call the Big One. But could it actually sink California into the ocean, or is the real danger something even more unsettling? Tonight we're diving into science, the myths, the strange warnings nature sometimes gives before earthquakes, and the terrifying truth about the San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault is not a single clean crack in the earth. It's actually a massive fault system made up of many fractures running through California. If you could see it from space, it would look like a giant scar cutting across the state. This scar formed about 30 million years ago, according to scientists, when the Pacific plate begins sliding past North America. Unlike volcano zones where plates collide or separate, the San Andreas Fault is a transform boundary. That means the plates move sideways past each other, about 2 inches per year, which might sound harmless, but imagine pushing two massive slabs of rock against each other. Eventually, they lock together, pressure builds, and when it finally releases, the earth snaps. On April 18, 1906, the ground beneath the San Francisco suddenly exploded into motion. This was the legendary 1906 San Francisco earthquake. At 5:12 in the morning, the earth began shaking violently. Buildings crumbled, streets split apart, gas lines burst into flames. For 3 days, fires consumed the city. Entire neighborhoods disappeared. More than 3,000 people lost their lives. It remains one of the most devastating disasters in American history, but what terrified scientists most wasn't just the destruction. It was the discovery that the San Andreas Fault had ruptured for nearly 300 miles. That meant the fault had the potential for even larger earthquakes. Hollywood loves dramatic disasters. Movies like San Andreas shows entire states collapsing into the sea. But geologically speaking, that can't happen. The San Andreas Fault doesn't move up and down. It moves sideways. So instead of California falling into the ocean, parts of it are actually sliding north. In about 20 million years, Los Angeles could be sitting next to San Francisco. Talk about a long road trip. But while the ocean sinking myth is fiction, the real dangers are very real. The southern section of the San Andreas Fault hasn't experienced a major rupture in over 300 years. That's a long time for pressure to build. Scientists at the United States Geological Survey estimate that Southern California has a significant probability of experiencing a magnitude 7.8 or greater earthquake sometime in the future. If that happens today, the consequences could be catastrophic. Models predict thousands of deaths, tens of thousands of injuries, major highway collapsing, water system destroyed, power outages lasting weeks, economic damage exceeding 200 billion. But earthquakes aren't the only strange part of the story, because sometimes nature gives warnings. Throughout history, people have reported strange events before major earthquakes. Animals behaving oddly, lights appearing in the sky, and eerie sounds coming from the ground. Let's start with the animals. Before the massive 1975 hatching earthquake in China, witnesses reported snakes leaving their burrows in the middle of winter. Dogs howled, livestock panicked. Hours later, the earthquake struck. Scientists believe animals may detect tiny vibrations or electrical changes in the ground before humans can, but that's just the beginning. One of the strangest phenomena ever recorded during earthquakes is something called earthquake lights. Witnesses describe glowing orbs, blue flashes, or shimmering lights hovering above the ground. These lights were reported before and during the 2009 La Aquila earthquake in Italy. Scientists believe that stress in certain types of rock may release electrical charges, causing growing plasma in the air. In other words, the earth might literally spark before it breaks. Some survivors of major earthquakes report hearing something terrifying just seconds before the shaking begins, a deep rumbling sound, like a distant train. Others describe it as a roar coming from underground. Kind of reminds me of the sound of a tornado. This may happen when seismic waves travel through rock faster than shaking reaches the surface, meaning sometimes you hear the earthquake before you feel it. And here's where things get unsettling. Earthquakes can sometimes trigger another earthquake. Large quakes send shock waves through the crust, increasing stress on nearby faults. California isn't just dealing with one fault, there are hundreds. Some scientists worry that a massive San Andreas rupture could trigger earthquakes along nearby faults like the Hayward Fault. This kind of chain reaction is sometimes called an earthquake cascade, a domino effect beneath the Earth's surface. Despite the danger, millions of people live along the San Andreas Fault. Why? Because California is still one of the most beautiful and economically powerful regions on Earth. Cities have improved earthquake safety dramatically since 1906. Buildings now flex during shaking instead of collapsing. Early warning systems can give people precious seconds to prepare. But the truth is, earthquakes cannot be stopped. They can only be survived. Right now, as you listen to this, the Pacific plate is still moving. The North American plate is pushing back. Deep underground, pressure is building. Maybe slowly, maybe silently, maybe eventually, the Earth will move again. And when it does, millions of people will be reminded of something we often forget. We don't live on the planet, we live on top of it. And sometimes it reminds us who's really in control. Have a good night, guys. Bye.